see. How's everybody doing? What? How y'all doing? I'm sorry. Would anybody like something to drink? I'm trying to cut back. I just did one finger. I usually do two fingers neat. Um, but tonight I'm just doing one finger. Trying to be good. Trying to be good. I got so many bad influences in my friend zone. You guys are always leading me down the road of inequity and blah 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 blah. So I'm anyway. Everybody got their Christmas shopping done? Your Christmas shopping is not done unless you got my gift. If you haven't got my gift, your shopping ain't done yet. And don't be cash apping me no $1.25 either. Because you know how you peoples be. Y'all know how y'all peoples be. Anyway, oh, don't, oh, snap. Yep, yep, yep. So what's happening? Tell me something good. I got one question. Who got my G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip? I've been waiting years and years and years and years on my G.I. Joe and I ain't got it yet. So somebody better get my G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip. My mama told me she was going to get it for me. Then she told me I was too old for it. And I was like, Mom, it's a collector's item. It's going to be worth money. She says, yeah, my money. You ain't getting it. Sometimes I couldn't stand that lady. But a practical butt. Like she had to raise me and pay for my food and my classes and everything I wanted to do and buy me instruments and stuff like that and cars. Like, when is enough not enough? Hey folks, how y'all doing? It's a little after 7:30, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I want to say good evening and welcome to the show. As always, I'm going to say thank you for spending your Thursday nights with me. All the things you could be doing, you choose to be here. And for that, I am truly humbled. For that, I am truly appreciative. Um, my name is Hank Batiste. My show is called OMITdaLOGIC. This shit makes no sense. I usually say I got something to say, so it must be true. To that effect, I'm your host, and tonight the voices in my head are saying, let's deck the halls with broths of holly and enjoy the holidays. But we got to be safe and vigilant. I posted this thing. It hasn't been as cold in most places, but anytime the winter rolls around, people have space heaters and carbon monoxide and fires and all of that. So be safe, folks. Have a safe holiday period. Be vigilant. And I'm gonna try to wind down, but those folks in Congress are acting a fool. I'm trying to curtail some of my cussing, but I keep telling y'all I don't cuss. I just use vocal exclamation points. Um, so the voices in my head, they're saying, let's enjoy the holidays, but let's be safe and be vigilant. And I hope this is probably going to be I might do another show next week, but if I do, it's just going to be a wrap up on what has transpired this year and what we need to be looking forward to in 22. And just wish you guys a happy holiday. So I never broadcast what my show is going to be about. You know, it's going to be about some of the current events, but next week, I think I might just do a wrap up of things we covered over the year and what progress we made and what things we need to be concerned about going into 2022. But as this year comes to an end, I'm amazed, but I'm not surprised by the lack of honor in public service as a whole. Um, with Congress acting a fool, we've got these billionaires like Elon Musk, and I've been on him for a couple weeks, mainly because there are no checks and balances as far as he's concerned. He's a billionaire headed to be a trillionaire, and with that, he does pretty much what he wants to do. And sending these rockets to the moon every month, every other week, and what have you, is fudging up our environment here on Earth. So he wants to somehow set up interplanetary encampments. Meanwhile, he's ignoring global warming. Now, this dude is supposed to be super smart. He's an engineer and he has Asperger's. So he's one of those super smart people with autism, but he lacks social skills, and it's obvious because he basically has tunnel vision and he doesn't care about anybody else. So I've been talking about him, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about him tonight. Um, then we see Congress. Now it's coming out about some of the things they've been doing. When they first came out with the vaccines, I talked about Trump having his hand in Pfizer and it coming up so quickly. It seems like he wasn't the only one. So that's a direct conflict of interest. So we're going to talk about the lack of honor in public service as it pertains to Congress, and what we need to do to get them in check. Since they can't police themselves, we're going to have to set up some accountability factors and hold them to it. Um, the Dems are still blowing it. So next week we're going to talk a little bit about it, but I'm not going to go into that too much. I'm going to go ahead and get on with the show. My name is Hank Batiste. The name of the show is OMITdaLOGIC. This shit makes no sense. The title of tonight's show is called Lady Justice and a Lack of Government Accountability. So let's do this, folks. I'm going to make it quick. I promise, I promise, I promise. Every time I say that, I feel like one old Baptist preacher. This shit makes no sense. Every time I turn on the news, I get an update on one of the news stations or channels or papers that I follow. I see that Joe Manchin has submersed himself in negotiating deals. And I said, this shit makes no sense. Here's the man who has extreme co-interest, and the last thing he wants to see is clean energy that affects his pocketbooks. And he tries to make it like it's about the people of West Virginia, but it's about Joe Manchin. So how in the Helen of Troy is Joe Manchin being trusted to negotiate any deal? Biden has not only capitulated and taken the knee, he's just laid down and given Manchin the keys. So to hell with the American people. We have no chance. We have no chance of getting rich folks to pay their fair share. As long as Manchin has something to say about it, and the others are not too swift on it as either. The only ones that's kind of pushing the envelope seems to be Biden at times and Bernie Sanders. So shout out to Bernie. May you live long and prosper. um, when I talk about this week, I saw McConnell, and I said the only person that doesn't want to see Trump back in office more than me is Mitch McConnell. So now he's showing somewhat of an interest in this January 6th probe. And yo, it'll be January the 6th again. It'll be the 1 year anniversary. It'll be the 1 year anniversary of Biden's inauguration. And I'm going to repost the spoken word that I wrote in reference to the inauguration and my disbelief that anything could really come out of this. I I see McConnell trying to take the Republican Party back, but it's too little, too late. When he had an opportunity to rein Trump in and cut him down at the knees, he gave him free rein because he wanted to set up these federal and state judgeships. So now we've got this Shakespearean cast of characters that I call Brutus and the Killers. When and I hate to go off on the nerd moment, but I'm gonna do it anyway. When Julius Caesar was assassinated, he was assassinated by one of his so-called best friends and one of his closest confidants. And that's where the term Brutus and the Killers came from. So when I talk about Brutus and the Killers hiding in plain sight, I'm saying just like a Shakespearean tragedy, Biden is being killed. His agenda, his plan for Build Back Better, his plan for bringing us forward is being assassinated by those that he trusts because he's still trying to behave like a congressman instead of taking the horse by the reins and being more presidential. Um, Heavy is the head that wears the crown, people. If you call yourself in charge, being a president is like CEO of a corporation, that corporation being the United States of America. And I talk a little bit about when I was selected to run the radiology department at Bethesda. And I use this example because this is similar to what's going on with Biden. Once upon a time, he was hanging out with um, all of these guys that he called his colleagues in Congress. When you're elevated and you're no longer one of the Indians and you become a chief, there's a lot of resentment. But there's always some so called friends who want to take advantage of the relationship that you had when you was one of the boys. This guy's name was Dennis McGee, and if he's out there, Dennis, yo, what's up, man? Dennis was this brother who was from Mississippi, and I'm from New Orleans. And Dennis always thought he was slick. You know what I'm saying? But he was basically a transparent little country boy. And we went to Bethesda around the same time. We were both at Howard at the same time. And when I got selected and not him, there was some resentment on his part. And he says, "Oh, my boy's in charge. We're gonna chill now." And I said, "No, bro, we're not." I said, "Because if you, my boy, as you put it, you know that I'll be living under a microscope. Everything that I do is gonna be scrutinized. So if you are my boy, I expect you to work as hard, if not harder, than you work for the man." And I said, "Dennis, don't make me." He was like, "Oh, bro." I said, "Don't go there. Don't go there." Because being a leader is you have to create boundaries. And sometimes they use a term called fraternization. That's where you two buddy with though your subordinates to the point that you can't chastise them or discipline them when necessary. And that seems to be the relationship between Biden and too many of the people in Congress. He has to establish these firm boundaries and stick to the fact that he's the face of the Democratic Party, not Joe Manchin. So Joe Manchin shouldn't be formulating the plan on Build Back Better. This is your idea. This is your vision. You build it in your image, President Biden. Just like you saw what happens when McConnell gave Trump free reign, now Biden has taken over the Senate, and anything that happens in the Senate has to go through Manchin. Fuck out of here with that bullshit. So you need to be more presidential. You need to be putting your foot on Biden's neck. Not literally, okay? By that, I mean there are steps that you can take to keep him in check. Even if it means, no matter how senior he is, pulling him up from his committee assignments and putting those people that are going to do what you need them to do, put them in these committees or on these committees to get things done. The other thing you can do is hold back this money when it goes for reelection. So now you have to depend solely on your co-interest to get you over. And when they no longer see that you don't have the power that you've been fronting, then they're going to start easing up. But as long as you take a knee, as long as you capitulate and you slow down and you give Manchin the keys to the castle, you're not going to get anything done, and the American people suffer. That goes from everything, and I think the same thing has to be done with Merrick Garland and Mike Meadows and Steve Gannon. You have to be more of a leader and less of one of these wanting to be liked. Instead of trying to be reelected, how about making sure that you are president for the 4 years we elected you? Cross that bridge when you come to it. That's all I got to say about that. Let's move on, folks. So, CNN has replaced Chris Cuomo with Chris Wallace, Mike Wallace's son. Now, if you don't know, now you know. Chris Wallace spent 18 years with Fox Network. And suddenly he's had this epiphany. He's had this rash of consciousness where he can no longer support the big lie and he can no longer support what Fox is doing. Well, it seems kind of funny that Chris Cuomo, was fired on Friday. First, he was indefinitely suspended. Then that Friday, he was fired. And then that Monday, CNN, checkmate, announced this deal with Chris Wallace. And then they start playing up the fact that his lineage is where he comes from. And Mike Wallace, his dad, was a respected newsman. Well, you get zero credibility. 18 years with Fox, and now you want to come up and do something and be somebody? No. I probably won't watch the show anyway. Yeah, I will watch the show at 9 o'clock when Cuomo was there, not because it was him, but because it was a good time for me to catch up on the news of the day. And I kind of like this delivery, and I'll be honest about it. The only sweet thing about this is Chris Cuomo is a lawyer. Now, how many of us have not had an employer that kind of gave us the shaft? So to see a prominent attorney from a politically renowned family whose last name just happened to be Cuomo, and both your brother and your dad were the governors of New York, and see you get the shaft, that's kind of sweet. If that's not karma, I don't know what is. Again, when I think about what's happening to Cuomo, when I think about what's happening to Andrew Cuomo, what's happening to Chris Cuomo, what's happening to even poor little Jussie, I say, when does Jared and the Trump henchmen, when do the true organizers, the movers and shakers, his disciples, Trump's disciples, despicable, delusional Donnie's disciples, when do they get called in? When do they find themselves in court sitting behind a defendant's table? I'll wait. So, Letitia, I know you're running for Attorney General for the state of New York because you realized you couldn't be governor, but give us a Trump. Give us a Trump. Give us Eric. Give us Little Donald. And let's just head towards the big dog. Merrick Garland, stop putting this shit off. Get Mike Meadows, get Steve Bannon, head on a platter. When it comes to justice, when it comes to accountability, they, first of all, Bannon was never covered because he was no longer working at the White House. So this ploy of you know, presidential privilege does not apply to him, especially. But Mike Meadows has already turned over this information with all of these text messages. And I was shocked to find out that some of the cronies, some of the people from Fox Network was even calling and texting Mike Meadows and people were in the White House, Don Jr., and telling them to tell Despicable Donnie to call off the dogs. And he ignored them. So people like, I hate to say their names, but Hannity, okay, I said it. Oh man, that should give me heartburn. When things are so extreme that your biggest supporters have abandoned you, that should send off flares, red flags, and all of the above. So we saw what was happening, and we saw Trump ignored. So it's time for heads to start rolling. We are closing in on the 1 year anniversary, and we have no fruit. We've held no one accountable other than 400 and something people that stormed the Capitol. So, Brutus and the killers, those people, now they're subpoenaing, they issued a subpoena for a colonel who basically gave them a recipe, a roadmap to how to pull off a coup. Now, who was the first person to call it a failed coup attempt? Yeah, I stole that from Blake. So we knew, or I knew, where this was going when you watered it down, when you discounted it and called the coup attempt an insurrection. The only difference was if Mike Pence had blanked, we would be in a civil war right now. Because we would have had this militia that we call patriots, this militia that I call terrorists, took hold of Congress. Nancy Pelosi, Mike Pence, and how many others would have been killed in the process. So that delusional, despicable Donnie could remain in power. And how in the Helen of Troy has nothing been done? Even if you're afraid to put him behind bars, come up with something that discredits him to the point where he has discredited himself so that we can get this country back on track. Can you do that for me? If you do that, you can keep your white Christmas, you can keep your Merry Christmas, you can keep your fa la 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 la's, and you can keep your chestnuts roasting on an open fire and just hold these people accountable. So, Chris Cuomo to Chris Wallace, that's a start. If you're going to hold the Cuomo's responsible and accountable, let's hold Donnie and his disciples. Let's hold Donnie and his henchmen accountable as well. Moving on. Elon Musk. This dude, I've got a grandson who has autism, who's autistic. He's borderline Asperger's. He played football, he ran track, he played soccer. This kid did everything. He was one of the most popular people in his high school. He was king of his prom. He went on and he graduated from college. But the problem is, when we talk about people that have Asperger's, they lack some of the social connects. And Elon Musk is brilliant on one hand, but he doesn't understand, he doesn't connect all of the dots, how it affects other people. All he cares about is his own personal needs and his own personal pocketbook. He wants to do interplanetary colonization. In other words, he wants to see people living on Mars. That's too godlike, people. I understand in the 60s there was a show called Star Trek, and we found out that there was people out there and there was beings. Am I arrogant enough to think that we're the only thing that the only beings that God created? No, because we know that there are angels, and we look around and every day there's some new animal that's being discovered. But God decides who lives on this planet and that planet. In the meanwhile, every time you send up a rocket, Mr. Engineer, you're ignoring the laws of physics that says energy cannot be created nor destroyed, just transforms from one form to another. That's why we're seeing tornadoes in the state of Minnesota in December when it's never been heard of before. That's why a few years back, there was a tornado, the very first tornado hit the city of New Orleans, decimated parts of eastern New Orleans. And by the grace of God, nobody died in the process. So, like they said in The Color Purple, people, God is trying to tell you something. So, Elon, get it together, partner. We need to rein his ass in and put some limitation. And then we need to make sure he pays his fair share of taxes. If we can do that, that would be the second president under America's Christmas tree. And we could all share in that. I said it last week and I'm going to say it again this week. If Elon Musk, if Jeff Bezos, if Mark Zuckerberg, just those three billionaires, and Elon Musk is on the verge of becoming a trillionaire with a T-R-A, ILLION. But he doesn't want to pay for anything. He wants to put chips in people's head because he says it's going to help people to communicate. But the problem with that is we already know anytime somebody gets their hands on information, they misuse said information. Information is knowledge, and knowledge is power. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. So we are funding his SpaceX program. We need to take some of that money out of this program and pay for our roads and our bridges. That's all I got to say about that. Last thing I'm going to talk about is these conflicts of interest. I'm watching MSNBC. I got a Newsweek update on my phone because Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, said she would not back a bill that prevents members of Congress and their staff from participating in the market, Wall Street, stocks and bonds. Now, here's the problem. Again, I always draw on my life experiences to try to paint a picture. When I was executive director of 2 county health centers, I had a board of directors from hell. When I came up with ideas, because the CEO works at the pleasure of the board of directors, the board of directors is supposed to be there to keep me in check. But I felt like I was the tail wagging the dog and trying to keep them in check. And I say that only because you are privy to information when you sit in these planning meetings. So you know what's going to be done before it's done. You can't act on that information. You can't go out and start a company. You can't buy into companies that are going to be the vendors. You can't do this because you have what's called a fiduciary responsibility to stay above board. To do anything else is unethical. It's malfeasance of office and it's criminal. But yet, 49 members of Congress and over 182 senior level staffers in Congress have been trading on the market. Now, remember, I talked about Pfizer. I said I wasn't going to get a Pfizer vaccine. I said it would either be Moderna or Johnson and Johnson, simply because Pfizer was given the keys to this by Trump. And you know, like I know, Trump doesn't do anything unless he gets a piece of the action. You know, like I know, Despicable Donnie and his delusional mind cares not about the safety of others, in contrast to his pocketbook. That's why I didn't trust the Pfizer vaccine to begin with. And that's why I said Pfizer would be the first to go back to the table to ask for another blank check. And both times I was right. But now I found out that it's not just Despicable Donnie. We've got a lot of despicable members of Congress who are buying stock in the Moderna and Johnson and Johnson as well. So they obviously found out that Despicable Donnie and some of his disciples was getting a piece of the Pfizer pie, and they decided to jump on the Moderna and Johnson and Johnson bandwagon. So I feel like we, the American public, should be holding them accountable. There should be accountants, what's called forensic accountants, going over all of them, bank accounts and financial statements, and figuring out how much money they made from investing in these companies, knowing that these companies would get government contracts for a COVID vaccine for the coronavirus. And then we need to ask Nancy, how can you not back. To hell with you, this bullshit. It's a free market. No, it's not, because you're privy to information just like I was as an executive director. But I had a moral compass that kept me. When it came to me policing myself, I did so because I had a fiduciary responsibility to the people of Tuskegee, where I managed their health center. I had a fiduciary responsibility, I felt, to the students at Tuskegee University, because I knew if something happened, I had to repair the relationship between Macon County and the state of Alabama. So I understand what's going on. And if I get it, why don't you? Congress, you got to hold yourself accountable. You got to do better. Nancy, it's time for you to give up this gavel, kid. Chuck Schumer, with this new Congress coming on, time. It's time. We need some fresh blood in there that has not been corrupted yet. That's the only way that things are going to get done. See, when I'm sitting here and I'm preaching and I'm teaching and I'm telling people that the only way to change the system is to be a part of the system, and they're telling me that they've lost faith because they see the things that I see and I talk about, I get it. I understand why so many people who have the opportunity to vote still refuse to vote because they've lost faith in those people, in the Nancy Pelosi, in the Joe Manchin, in the Kristen Cinemas. And those are supposed to be the good guys. And even in the Joe Biden, I was one of the first to say, run, Joe, run. And I said that he could unite the people of the country. And he's done that. But then he goes halfway and he gets two bad polls. They don't like me. I want everybody to like me. And he abandons his own vision. If you stick to your guns, people are going to admire you. Even those that don't like you will respect you. So that's all I got for you tonight, folks. I stayed on track. I didn't go off the rails. So I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Go to my YouTube, subscribe, give me a thumbs up. That's the last thing I'm going to ask you for Christmas. Two things are out of your control. That's what I want the members of Congress to do. That's what I want Biden and Merrick Garland to do. What I want you to do. You don't have to cash app me. If you choose to, it's cool. But that's not what I'm here for. What I want you to do, I want you to share my show. I want you to take it upon yourself to invite others to sign up, subscribe, hit the bell, make my show go viral, because I haven't said anything that is not true. Some of it may be tinged with a singe of opinionation, but this is straight, no chaser. So go to my YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the bell so that you're notified, and then invite others to check out my show. Give me a thumbs up. Give me some words of encouragement. Folks, the 2021 is almost in the rearview mirror. But as always, thank you for tuning in tonight. I'll see you next week, right here. Same Baptiste time, same Baptiste place. Remember what I say. Don't be so afraid to die that you forget to live for a purpose, because no man knows the hour or the day. My name is Hank Batiste. alias the Renaissance Man, also known as Rennie. This is OMITdaLOGIC. This shit makes no sense. As always, imparting, folks, wish you love, I wish you peace. Like your man, Hair Grease. I'm out of here.